The baby's cry sliced through the silence of dawn. Dust floated in the thin beam of light that slipped through the half-broken window, painting the wooden crib in gold and ash. On the floor beside it, a German shepherd stirred, ribs faintly visible, eyes burning with alert devotion. His name was Rex, and for weeks he had been the baby's only guardian in a house that no longer felt like home. A storm had torn through the night. The front door hung ajar, wind hissing through it like a warning. Ah, somewhere outside, a distant crash echoed, metal against metal, followed by a low growl that didn't belong to the dog. The baby whimpered, tiny fingers curling toward Rex. He rose, muscles tense, scanning the shadows. Every instinct screamed, protect. He nudged the crib closer to the corner, placing his body between the child and the door. Then came the sound. Footsteps. Slow, dragging. Rex's ears flicked. His body trembled, not from fear, but from certainty. Whatever was out there was coming for them. And in that fragile heartbeat, before the next crash of thunder, the world shrank to one truth. A baby's breath and a dog's vow to never let it stop. Show your love. Hit like, share, and subscribe for more. Morning came slow, like a hesitant apology after a long night of fear. The storm had passed, but its memory still clung to the world, broken branches, a leaking roof, and the faint smell of wet earth seeping through every crack in the wooden walls. Rex sat close to the crib, eyes half closed, his ears still twitching at every distant creak. The baby slept now, exhaustion softening the tiny lines of distress around his eyes. A pale ray of light brushed across his cheek, catching the faint movement of his lips as he breathed. Shallow, rhythmic, fragile. Rex watched, unmoving. His fur was damp, matted with mud from the night before, but he didn't shake it off. Every instinct told him to stay still, to guard, to listen. He turned his head slightly, sniffing the air. Smoke. Not close, but not far either. The storm had brought more than rain. It had carried something broken into their world. He had seen it before. When humans shouted, doors slammed, and the man of the house never returned. Since then, it had been just the baby and him. The crib creaked softly as the baby stirred, a whimper escaping those tiny lips. Rex rose and pressed his nose gently against the baby's blanket. The touch seemed to calm the child. The crying faded into small hiccups and sighs. The warmth of that moment filled the cold room with something fragile yet powerful, trust. For the baby, Rex was warmth and safety. For Rex, the baby was purpose. And in that unspoken exchange, something sacred was built. Outside, the morning light revealed what the night had hidden. The yard scattered with debris. The old shed at the back with its door half torn from the hinges and muddy footprints leading toward the forest. The world beyond the threshold was uncertain, but Rex knew one thing. As long as that tiny heartbeat pulsed within the crib, he would not let harm near. The baby woke again, this time quieter. Big blue eyes blinked up at him, catching the light. He reached out a small hand, fingers trembling, brushing against the air between them. Rex hesitated, then lowered his head until soft skin met rough fur. The baby giggled, a sound so pure it cut through the gloom like sunlight through fog. For the first time in days, Rex's tail thumped faintly against the floor. He stayed like that, watching, guarding, breathing in rhythm with the child, until the world outside began to stir. The wind softened and the faraway sounds of life returned. Birds, the creak of trees, the faint hum of insects waking to daylight. But peace never lasted long in this place. The baby's small stomach growled softly, followed by a fretful cry. Rex tilted his head, understanding the need before it became panic. He padded toward the corner where an overturned chair lay beside a spilled bag. Inside were the baby's things. A half-empty bottle, a torn blanket, a faded picture of a woman with kind eyes. Rex sniffed the photo. The scent was faint but familiar. The woman had once held the baby close, her voice soft, her laughter warm. She used to pet Rex too, calling him good boy before everything changed. He pushed the photo gently closer to the crib, as if offering the child a piece of memory. The baby reached for it, clutching the corner of the image. His cries softened again. Outside, a crow called sharply from the fence post. Rex's head snapped toward the sound. His instincts surged. Danger again. He moved silently toward the broken door, nose twitching. There was movement beyond the yard, low and cautious, too deliberate to be the wind. A shape flickered between the trees. Human. Rex growled, low in warning. The baby startled but didn't cry, almost as if he sensed the reason behind that sound. Rex stayed still, muscles tense, waiting. The shape didn't move closer, just lingered in the distance, watching. Minutes stretched. The silence grew heavy again. Then, the shape turned and vanished into the woods. Rex didn't relax until the forest swallowed every sound of footsteps. When he finally turned back, the baby had fallen asleep again, still holding the picture. Rex returned to his place beside the crib, lowering himself carefully. The warmth from the tiny body reached him through the wood and blankets. For the first time that morning, he closed his eyes, not to rest, but to listen to the rhythm of breathing that had become his lifeline. He dreamed in sounds and scents, in the memory of laughter and the faint hum of lullabies, in flashes of light and warmth, before storms and hunger became their companions. When he woke again, the sun had climbed higher. The baby slept peacefully, one tiny hand tangled in the dog's fur. Beyond those four walls, the world was uncertain, even cruel. But inside this fragile shelter, love had taken root, silent, steadfast, and alive. And though the road ahead would test them both, neither the baby nor the dog knew that this quiet morning was just the calm before everything changed. The afternoon light crept across the floorboards, chasing away the cool shadows that clung to the corners. The house, small, worn, but still standing, seemed peaceful again. Yet beneath the stillness, a quiet unease lingered like the hush before a cry. Rex stirred first. His nose twitched as he caught the scent of change in the air, not the wind or the earth, but something sharper. Human, not familiar, not safe. He rose from his place beside the crib, paused silent on the floor. The baby slept soundly, clutching the corner of the faded photograph. For a moment, Rex allowed himself to watch the child's chest rise and fall, that fragile rhythm that gave him purpose. Then he turned toward the doorway. Outside, the forest whispered. Birds had stopped calling. The silence of nature was never empty. It was a warning. Rex's body tightened, instincts alive and electric. He padded toward the door, his breath low, controlled. Through the half-open frame, he saw movement near the shed, the one that had barely survived the storm. A man stood there. He was tall, rough around the edges, with eyes that darted like a scavenger's. His jacket hung torn, and a deep scar ran across his left cheek. He scanned the yard with a hunter's patience. When his gaze landed on the house, Rex felt the air change. Thicker, heavier, dangerous. The man began to move closer. Rex's low growl rolled through the air, deep and steady. The man froze for a moment, his hand drifting toward his belt. A knife glinted at his side. He muttered something under his breath, then took another step. That was all Rex needed to hear. In a blur, the German shepherd lunged to the doorway, hackles raised, teeth bared in a silent snarl. He didn't bark. Barking would reveal too much. Instead, he let his presence speak for him. A guardian, a wall of muscle and fury blocking every inch of the threshold. The man hesitated, then sneered. Still guarding the mutt? He whispered, voice cracked with bitterness. The word cut deeper than sound. Rex didn't understand the language, but he felt the tone, cruelty, mockery, the scent of harm. His teeth flashed in the light. The man chuckled and backed off, until he vanished into the trees again. But something told Rex he would return. He waited at the doorway for several minutes before returning to the baby. The child had woken, frightened by the shift in energy. So, his wide eyes sought the familiar shape of the dog. When Rex came back, the baby reached for him instantly, whimpering softly. Rex pressed his muzzle against the crib. The baby grabbed his fur and tugged weakly, a reassurance, a plea to stay. And Rex understood. He was the last line between this child and the dark world beyond those trees. The day passed in uneasy rhythm. The sun climbed, then fell, stretching shadows long across the floor. Rex found what food he could. Stale bread from a torn bag, a few drops of water from a rusted can. He tore a piece of cloth from an old curtain and dragged it near the crib to block the evening chill. When night came, it came fast. Heavy clouds swallowing the stars, thunder growling low in the distance. The storm hadn't truly left. It had only circled back. As the wind rose, Rex's mind replayed the man's face, that scar, that mocking tone. He'd seen men like that before, desperate, dangerous. The kind that came after storms, searching for what was left. Food, shelter, or work. He pressed himself against the crib, eyes on the door, heart pounding with quiet fear. Then from the woods came the sound. Crunch. Footsteps. Slow. Careful. Rex's body tensed. The baby stirred in his sleep, a small cry escaping. The footsteps drew closer, one, then another. A flicker of light outside, a flashlight beam cutting through the cracks in the wall. It stopped on the window, hovered, then moved toward the door. Rex growled again, louder this time. The door creaked. A voice, muffled by the storm, called out, "Easy, boy, easy." It was the man. He stepped inside, drenched and dirty, his flashlight trembling in his hand, his eyes locked on the crib and the child within it. Rex barked once, sharp and thunderous. The man flinched but didn't stop. He took another step forward. "We don't want trouble," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "Just the kid. It's not safe here. The others, they're coming." The words didn't matter. All Rex saw was the hand reaching forward, and all he knew was threat. He lunged. The man's arm shot up to block, and the two collided in a blur of chaos. The crash of wood, the baby's terrified cry, the sharp sting of pain as Rex's shoulder slammed into the floor. The man cursed, stumbled back, and the flashlight fell, spinning light across the walls. For a moment, the world was madness. Growls, shouts, thunder. Then a new sound, the distant roar of an engine. The man froze. His eyes widened. They found us," he hissed, half to himself. He glanced at the baby again, then at the dog, then bolted through the door, disappearing into the storm. Rex stood trembling, sides heaving, blood on his paw where he'd scraped the floor. He turned immediately to the baby, crying now, high and frightened. He nudged the crib, whining softly. The baby reached out, his tears mixing with the flicker of lightning. Rex rested his head against the crib's side, letting the tiny fingers clutch his ear. The storm raged again outside. But inside the small room, two hearts beat in the same rhythm. Terrified, but together, the house creaked with the wind. The photo of the woman fluttered off the floor and landed near Rex's paw. He glanced at it, the faint smile frozen on paper. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. Only that something had broken tonight. The world had shifted. The silence they once shared was gone. Now there was only movement, urgency, and the promise of more danger to come. Still, as the baby's sobs quieted and sleep returned in trembling breaths, Rex lay down beside him again. His body hurt, his spirit burned, but his vow remained the same. Whatever storm was coming, he would face it first, for the baby, for the bond, for the life that was The morning after the storm was not quiet. It was hollow. The air carried no birdsong, no breeze, only the smell of wet wood, and something distant, metallic, like the ghost of smoke. The house stood battered but intact, its walls creaking as though sighing in relief. Inside, Rex stirred, every muscle heavy with exhaustion. He hadn't slept. All night he had watched the door, eyes glowing faintly in the flashes of fading lightning. Each sound outside, a branch breaking, a drip of water, sent him to his feet again. But now, in the washed-out dawn, the danger felt closer, not gone. The baby lay wrapped in a blanket of faded green, sleeping in fragile peace. His cheeks were still flushed from crying, but his breathing was steady, soft. Rex watched him for a long moment. Turned toward the door and 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 turned toward the doorway 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 and turned toward the doorway. The world beyond those planks was changing. He could feel it in his bones. The man from last night hadn't been alone. His words had told him enough. They're coming. Whoever they were, Rex knew what that meant. The baby was not safe here. He padded to the doorway and pushed it open, 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 pushed it open. The morning light broke through the fog, revealing the forest ahead, damp, deep, and dark. The shed stood crooked in the yard, its door swinging lightly in the wind. A chill ran through him. He remembered the man standing there, watching. Rex's paws sank into the mud as he stepped outside. The earth felt cold beneath his pads, and the scent of humans lingered, faint but recent. He followed it a few steps, his nose close to the ground. Footprints led away from the house toward the forest trail. He stopped there, listening. Nothing. Then came a faint sound, the low rumble of an engine somewhere far beyond the trees. His ears pricked instantly. The same sound from last night. They hadn't gone. He turned back toward the house, heart pounding. The baby couldn't stay here. Inside, the child had woken, his soft whimpers rising into the still air. Rex trotted back, nudging the crib gently with his muzzle. The baby's tiny hand reached out, trembling, and caught the dog's fur. "It's okay," Rex seemed to say with the silent steadiness of his eyes. But it wasn't okay. 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 He pushed the crib slightly with his head, as if testing its weight. It was too heavy. He would have to carry the baby himself. Carefully, he nosed the blanket around the child, making sure it was tight and warm. The baby's eyes fluttered open, frightened, confused, but calm in his presence. Then Rex crouched low, nudged the baby closer, and, with surprising gentleness, lifted the blanket's edge with his teeth. The bundle rested against his chest, small and warm. He adjusted it until he could move without jarring the tiny body. And then he stepped dad into the more 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 dad into the morning. The forest greeted them with silence. Mist clung to the trees, wrapping everything in pale gray. Every sound, the drip of water, the rustled leaves felt louder than it should. Rex moved with deliberate care, each paw placed with purpose. The baby stirred once, then went quiet again, lulled by the rhythm of movement and the steady beat of the dog's heart. For a while, the only sound was their breathing. But peace never lasted. A crack echoed through the forest, faint, metallic. Then another. Gunfire. Gunfire. Rex froze mid-step, his body stiff. The baby whimpered at the sudden stillness. Another shot closer this time, followed by voices, rough, hurried, male. He turned sharply and darted toward a slope on the left, moving downhill through thick brush. Branches whipped against his fur, but he didn't slow. The baby let out a soft cry as the world jolted around him, but Rex's instincts overrode all else. Distance. He needed distance. He ran until his lungs burned and his legs trembled. Finally, when the sounds behind him faded into wind, he stopped beside a fallen tree. His chest heaved as he set the baby gently onto a patch of moss. The child's eyes were wide now, glistening with tears. His lower lip trembled, but when Rex leaned close, the crying stopped. Tiny fingers found his fur again. The baby's breathing steadied. Rex lowered his head beside the child, pressing close for warmth. His body ached. The wound on his paw from last night had reopened, leaving faint drops of blood on the ground. But pain didn't matter. He listened carefully. Distant birds calling again, the forest settling back into uneasy calm. They were safe, for now. The baby cooed softly, his voice fragile against the forest's vastness. Rex lifted his head, watching the light filter through the leaves. He could sense the edge of the forest nearby. Beyond it, perhaps, a village. Maybe other humans. But whether they were kind or cruel, he didn't know. He thought of the woman in the photo, her scent, her voice. She had once walked beyond these trees. Maybe, somewhere beyond the horizon, her world still existed. He had to find it. The hours passed slowly. Rex carried the baby again, climbing over roots and through patches of tall grass. The forest thickened, sunlight breaking through in gold spears. The air grew warmer. The baby slept most of the way, his head resting against the soft fur of Rex's neck. At midday, they reached a stream. The water glittered faintly, cold and clear. Rex set the baby down on the bank and drank deeply. Then, carefully, he wet his muzzle and touched it to the baby's lips. A small sound. Half giggle, half say came in response. For a brief, stolen moment, the world felt gentle again. But as the light began to fade, Rex's ears caught something. Movement on the far side of the water. Fast unsteady, a shadow between the trees. Then another. Voices again, faint but rising. They had followed the tracks. Rex's heart slammed against his ribs. He picked up the baby swiftly, his body tensing. Across the stream, a figure appeared. The same man with the scar, his flashlight bobbing in the dim light. "There!" the man shouted. Rex didn't wait. He plunged into the stream, cold water biting at his legs. The baby let out a cry, clutching instinctively at his fur. The current was strong, but Rex pushed forward, muscles burning. Behind him came another shout, then a splash. Pursuit. Every instinct screamed run. He scrambled up the far bank, mud flying beneath his paws, and tore through the trees. Branches lashed his sides, his breath ragged. The baby cried softly, frightened but alive. The forest blurred into streaks of green and gold. Finally, when the shouts faded into distance again, Rex stopped beneath an old oak, chest heaving. He looked back, nothing but mist and shadows. Safe, for now. He laid the baby down once more, licking his cheek as if to say, "It's over." The baby's tiny hand brushed his nose, and even through exhaustion, Rex wagged his tail once faintly. The danger wasn't gone. Not truly. But they had survived another chase. Another test of the bond that tied their lives together. As darkness settled again, Rex curled himself protectively around the child, his head resting beside the small chest that rose and fell. The forest sang its lullaby. Wind, water, and the heartbeat of safety, however temporary. And as sleep finally took him, Rex dreamed not of storms or footsteps or fear, but of open skies, sunlight, and the sound of a woman's laughter calling them home. The morning sun broke through the trees in thin, trembling beams, brushing the forest floor with gold. Dew shimmered on every blade of grass, and the air smelled clean for the first time in days. The child's small hand rested on his fur, fingers curled gently. The warmth of that touch grounded him. It reminded him why he still stood when his body begged for rest. He rose slowly, careful not to wake the baby. His left paw still ached from the chase, but the bleeding had... The forest was quieter now. No footsteps, no shouting, just the hum of morning. The danger had moved on, or so he hoped. He needed to find shelter.
Food.
And food. He nudged the baby gently, earning a sleepy whimper. The child blinked up at him, eyes hazy with confusion, but trust already present. It was a look that no words could ever replace, a silent belief that as long as Rex was there, the world would not harm him. With a quiet huff, Rex lowered himself, allowing the baby's blanket to rest securely against his shoulders again. Then he began walking. The forest thinned gradually, the trees opening to reveal slopes of wild grass and the faint outline of a dirt road ahead. The sound of trickling water followed them, the same stream from last night winding down toward open land. Somewhere beyond it, faint and distant, came a different sound, metal against metal, rhythmic and hollow. Aikido's civilization. Rex paused at the edge of the woods, scanning the horizon. The landscape spread wide. Golden hills, patches of farmland, and, farther down, smoke rising from what looked like a settlement. The sight made his chest tighten. Humans, safety perhaps, or danger. He hesitated, but the baby stirred, letting out a small, hungry cry. The decision was made for him. He stepped out from the forest. The ground here was dry, cracked in places, scattered with pebbles and old tire tracks. As he moved forward, the scent of human life grew stronger. Fire, bread, oil, sweat. His ears caught faint voices carried by the wind, laughter, footsteps. It had been so long since he'd heard sounds of living people that it felt unreal. He crested a small hill and stopped. Below him stretched a quiet village, small cottages, a few old trucks, a faded sign hanging crooked from a post. Millridge. The letters were chipped and sun-faded. The place looked tired but alive. Rex stayed still for several minutes, studying every movement. A woman drew water from a well. 2 children chased each other near a fence. None of them seemed threatening. He could sense calm here. Fragile, but real. He took a step forward. The nearest child saw him first. A boy, maybe 7, his laughter freezing mid-breath. He stared at the large, mud-covered dog carrying something in its mouth. Then he screamed, "Mama!" Within seconds, people appeared from doorways, men and women, wary, holding tools like weapons. The woman by the well dropped her bucket and stepped back, eyes wide. Rex froze halfway down the slope, his heart pounding. The baby whimpered softly. The villagers' murmurs grew louder. Then an older man stepped forward. Gray beard, calm eyes, a walking stick in his hand. "Easy, everyone," he said in a low voice. "It's just a dog." He looked closer, then stiffened. No, he's carrying a baby." The words rippled through the group like shock. Gasps, whispers. "A baby? Whose child is that? Is it alive?" The man approached slowly, his palms open. It's all right, boy," he murmured to Rex. No one's going to hurt you." Rex's stance lowered instinctively, a low growl rising from his chest. His eyes darted between faces. Too many scents, too much movement. The baby began to cry louder now, the sound slicing through the tension. The man stopped a few steps away, his gaze softening. "You've been protecting him, haven't you?" He whispered, voice trembling with awe. "Oh, God help us. You've kept him alive." He knelt, inch by inch, until he was eye level with Rex. The dog's growl faded to a whine. The man reached out a hand, slowly, steadily, and touched the edge of the blanket. The baby blinked up at the stranger, then began to cry again. The man looked stricken, his hands gentle, as he lifted the child from Rex's hold. "He's freezing," he said. "Get Clara, bring warm water." The villagers scattered into motion. For the first time in what felt like forever, Rex didn't know what to do. He watched the man cradle the baby, saw the tenderness in his hands. No harm. No anger. Just care. Rex followed as they led the way to a small wooden house near the well. Inside, a woman hurried to prepare a fire, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Where on earth did they come from?" she whispered. "Found them near the woods," the man replied. The storm probably left them stranded. We'll find out soon enough." The woman, Clara, took the baby, wrapping him in soft blankets. "Poor thing," she murmured. "He's starving." The baby began to drink from the bottle she offered, his cries melting into small gulps and sighs. Watching him safe, fed, and warm, Rex finally let himself lie down near the doorway. Every muscle in his body trembled, the weight of days catching up to him. The man knelt beside him, offering a bowl of water. "You've done something remarkable, friend," he said softly. "You saved him. Rest now." Rex hesitated, sniffing the bowl, then drank deeply. The cool water touched something primal. Relief. His eyelids grew heavy, but his gaze stayed fixed on the crib where the baby now lay, sleeping peacefully again. For the first time, Rex didn't need to listen for footsteps or storms. The air was quiet, the fire warm, the scent of safety all around. But deep within that warmth, a question lingered. The man who had chased them, the one with the scar, was still out there. And men like him didn't stop searching. As the fire crackled and the baby breathed softly in his sleep, Rex finally let his body relax, his head resting on his paws. His heart slowed, but his instincts stayed sharp. Because peace, he knew, was never permanent.
It was only a pause, the deep breath before the next fight for survival.
The days that followed felt like borrowed time, still quiet and golden in their simplicity. The small village of Millridge, surrounded by wide fields and whispering trees, became a fragile haven for the unlikely pair. The storm was gone, the air smelled of bread and rain, and for the first time in what felt like forever, Rex slept without fear. He slept near the baby's crib inside the modest cottage, his body curled tight, nose close to the floorboards. The warmth of the fire washed over him, and the faint sounds of life outside. The clatter of buckets, the laughter of children, painted a world he'd almost forgotten existed. Every morning began the same way. Clara, the kind-eyed woman who had taken them in, would wake before dawn to start the fire. Her husband, Samuel, would check the animals, and Rex would rise quietly to watch over the baby, whom Clara now called Noah. A little Noah, she'd whisper every morning, brushing her hand over his tiny head. "You're safe now." Rex didn't understand the words, but he understood the tone. Safety. Love. These were feelings he could recognize, even if he couldn't name them. When the baby stirred, Rex would nudge the blanket closer, his nose brushing the soft skin of the boy's arm. The baby always reacted the same. A faint smile, a giggle, or a small hand reaching toward his fur. That simple contact carried more comfort than words ever could. Clara would watch from the hearth sometimes, her hands pausing in their work. "I've never seen anything like it," she told Samuel one morning. "That dog, he's not just protecting the baby, he's bonded to him, as if they've been through something sacred." Samuel nodded, his expression thoughtful. "Sometimes the purest love doesn't need words," he said quietly. And maybe they saved each other. Outside, the world had started healing too. The villagers had begun rebuilding fences and roofs the storm had destroyed. Children played again near the well. The forest, though still heavy with shadows, seemed calmer. But even amidst this peace, Rex's eyes often drifted toward the horizon. She remembered the scarred man, the chase, the forest that had swallowed the sounds of pursuit. His instincts told him it wasn't over. But he couldn't linger in fear, not when the baby laughed. Noah's laughter became the pulse of the household. It was soft at first, uncertain, but grew stronger every day. Clara would hum songs as she worked, and the baby would giggle whenever Rex wagged his tail or tilted his head in confusion. The bond between them deepened with each passing hour. Sometimes, when Clara stepped outside to fetch water, Rex would crawl closer to the crib. Noah, awake and restless, would stretch his hands toward him. Rex would place his head beside the wooden bars, allowing the baby to touch his ears, his nose, his fur. Tiny fingers would tug playfully, and Rex would endure it patiently, closing his eyes. It was trust made visible. Quiet, One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the room in amber, Clara found them like that. The baby giggling, Rex lying still, his eyes soft and heavy. She smiled, tears catching in her lashes. "You've found your guardian angel, haven't you?" she whispered to Noah. Rex's ears flicked at the sound of her voice. For a brief moment, he looked up, and she swore he understood. Weeks passed. The wound on Rex's paw healed slowly, leaving a faint scar. His fur began to shine again, no longer matted with dirt. The baby grew stronger, his cheeks filling out, his laughter echoing through the cottage. Sometimes Samuel would toss scraps of meat toward Rex. "You've earned it, boy," he'd say with a grin. "You keep an eye on my family. I'll keep an eye on yours." But even as life settled into rhythm, the nights carried whispers of unease. One night, long after the fire had dimmed, Rex woke suddenly. His ears pricked. The wind outside had changed. It carried a different scent. Faint but familiar. Smoke, not from their fire. From somewhere beyond the village. He rose quietly, padding to the window. The moon hung pale in a restless sky, and far on the northern ridge, a faint orange glow flickered. Not large enough to be a wildfire, but enough to make his fur stand on end. He stared for a long moment before lying down again, pressing himself against the crib. Noah stirred in his sleep, his tiny hand resting on Rex's back. That touch calmed him, a reminder that he wasn't just a protector, and he was home for someone. And now. The next morning, Clara noticed the faint tension in him. "You sense something, don't you?" she murmured, kneeling beside him. But Samuel said there were strangers near the river road. Maybe just travelers, but Rex's eyes didn't soften. Travelers, maybe. Or pursuers. By midday, life resumed its fragile normalcy. Noah sat wrapped in a thick blanket on the porch while Clara mended clothes. The baby gurgled, his eyes following the flutter of sparrows overhead. Rex lay beside him, his head resting on his paws, every sense half alert but calm. A few villagers passed by, smiling warmly. That dog never leaves his side, one of them said. It's like he's part of him. Clara laughed softly. He's family now. I don't think either of them remembers a world without the other. As the afternoon faded into gold, Noah began to nod off. Clara lifted him gently, placing him back into the crib inside. Rex followed, ever watchful, his tail brushing lightly against the floor. The house smelled of soup and bread, the kind of scent that made even walls feel safe. The crackle of fire filled the silence. Outside, Samuel returned from the fields just as the first drops of rain began to fall again. But this rain was gentle. No thunder, no violence, just soft murmurs against the roof. He leaned his toasted against the wall and glanced toward the woods. The wind had changed direction again, and with it came a sound, faint, far, but unmistakable, the low growl of an engine. He frowned. Clara, he called softly. Keep the baby inside tonight. Rex's head lifted immediately, ears snapping to attention. Clara's brow furrowed, but she nodded. You think? Just a feeling, Samuel said, but Rex already knew. He'd felt that vibration once before. Deep in the earth, the hum that came before chaos. He turned toward the crib. The baby slept peacefully, unaware of the gathering storm. Rex pressed his nose against Noah's blanket, eyes glinting in the firelight. The bond between them was no longer just love. It was a lifeline, forged in survival, grown through healing, and tested by everything the world had thrown at them. Outside, thunder rolled in the far distance again, slow, deliberate, like a promise. And Rex understood what it meant. The peace they'd found was real, but it would not last much longer. The wind carried strange voices that night. It began softly, a murmur threading through the trees, stirring the leaves just enough to make the cottage walls creak. Then came the faint rumble of an engine again, distant but deliberate, echoing through the valley like a memory clawing its way back to life. Rex stirred from his sleep, his ears perked, head lifting slowly from the wooden floorboards beside Noah's crib. His breathing grew shallow, eyes reflecting the amber flicker of the dying fire. The scent was faint, almost hidden under the smoke and rain, but unmistakable. Unmistakable. Oil, metal, and something else, the faint musk of the man he'd once run from. The scarred man. Rex rose silently, pressing his nose against the window crack. The night outside was restless. Silver light spilling through the drifting mist, raindrops glinting like shards on the glass. Somewhere in the far hills, a truck's headlights glowed for a second before vanishing behind the trees. He growled, low and quiet. From the crib came a faint whimper. Noah shifted in his sleep, his hand reaching out blindly. Rex turned immediately, nuzzling his fingers, calming him with a low rumble from his chest. The baby's breathing steadied, soft and warm. But Rex didn't lie down again. He stood watch until the sky began to pale with morning. By dawn, the rain had cleared, leaving the earth damp and glistening. Samuel noticed the tracks near the road, thick tire marks cutting through the mud where no village cart had passed in weeks. He knelt beside them, running his fingers over the grooves. Clara, he called out. Come take a look at this. Clara emerged from the doorway, her shawl pulled tight around her shoulders. More travelers? He shook his head slowly. No, too heavy for a wagon. Looks like a truck. Came up from the south road. Clara's eyes darted instinctively toward the cottage window where Noah's small face had just appeared. Sleepy, curious, behind him. Rex's head rose into view, his ears' sharp gaze fixed on the same road. Clara exhaled. Maybe we should tell the sheriff. But keep them close today, especially the boy. Rex stood beside the crib as if he already understood. The day crawled by, thick with unease. The village, usually humming with voices and laughter, felt muted. People spoke in whispers. Even the sparrows seemed quieter. Clara busied herself with chores, though her eyes kept flicking toward the window. Each gust of wind made her flinch. Rex moved from room to room like a shadow. Silent, alert, protective. Every sound, every flicker of motion outside the glass made his fur bristle. That afternoon, a knock came at the door. It was Sheriff Hawkins, a tall man with a gentle but wary face. He removed his hat as he stepped in. Heard Samuel found tracks. I thought I'd take a look myself. Clara nodded, leading him toward the back fields. Rex followed, padding silently behind. And there's oil residue. Someone's running a generator or heavy equipment. You said they stopped near your property? Samuel nodded grimly. At least for a while. Maybe just passing through. Sheriff Hawkins sighed. It may be. Or maybe they were looking for something. His eyes flicked briefly toward the cottage and caught sight of Rex standing in the doorway, motionless, eyes locked on him. The dog's stare was steady, intelligent, almost human. The sheriff nodded slowly. That's a sharp one you've got there. Samuel managed a tight smile. He's more than that. He's a survivor. That night, Clara couldn't sleep. The wind was still restless, and the shadows outside the windows seemed to move differently. Too deliberate, too slow. Every time the old wood creaked, she thought of the baby's cry in the storm, the forest, the fear. Rex lay near the crib again, eyes half open, muscles coiled. The faint rhythm of Noah's breathing was his anchor. But when a faint metallic sound came from outside, like the clang of a chain or latch, Rex was on his feet instantly. He padded to the window. The world outside was pitch black, the moon hidden behind clouds. Then he saw it, a flicker of movement near the tree line. A figure, just a silhouette. Watching the house, Rex growled, the sound low and primal. Clara, startled, sat upright in bed. Rex, what is it? He didn't look back. His gaze stayed fixed on the darkness. Clara followed his line of sight and froze. For just a heartbeat, she saw it too. A tall figure, half hidden, turning away into the mist. Then gone. Her voice trembled. Samuel. Within seconds, Samuel was at the door, shotgun in hand. He threw it open, stepping onto the porch, scanning the fields. Nothing but the whisper of rain and the echo of his own breath. Rex bolted past him, charging into the night. Rex! Clara cried. But the dog was gone, swallowed by fog and memory. The world outside was a ghost of itself. The trees groaned under the weight of the mist. The ground was slick with mud, muffling his paws as he ran. Rex followed the scent. Faint, but sharp. Oil, sweat, leather. The man was close. He slowed near the edge of the woods, body low, ears flicking. Then, through the blur of rain, he saw it, a shadow slipping between the trunks. Tall, lean, carrying something metallic, the scarred man. Rex's heart hammered. His body wanted to lunge, but instinct said wait. The man paused, scanning the field toward the cottage. He muttered something under his breath, a voice rough and cruel. Then he turned, vanishing deeper into the trees. Rex stayed there for minutes that felt like hours, waiting, listening. Then he turned back toward the faint glow of the cottage. He couldn't leave Noah unguarded. By the time he returned, dawn was brushing the horizon. His fur was soaked, paws muddy, but his eyes burned with resolve. Inside, Clara held Noah close, tears streaking her face. Samuel stood at the door, shotgun resting against his shoulder, worry etched into every line of his face. Rex entered silently, moving straight to the crib. He pressed his head against Noah's blanket, trembling slightly. The baby reached out, as if sensing the storm inside him, and touched his ear. That touch was enough. He was home. For now. The following morning, the sheriff came again. He found the tracks. Fresh footprints leading into the woods and heavy boots. Same direction the truck had taken. This wasn't random, he said grimly. Someone's been watching your place. I'll post a deputy down the road just in case. Samuel thanked him, but Clara couldn't shake the look on Rex's face. The silent, knowing tension that hadn't left his body since the night before. As the sheriff drove away, Noah began to cry softly. Rex immediately went to him, laying his head on the edge of the crib. The baby quieted instantly. Clara stood in the doorway, watching them, a trembling smile on her lips, fear hiding just behind it. The echoes of fear hadn't left. They'd simply gone quiet, waiting. And Rex knew silence was never safety. It was the moment before the next storm. The night had teeth again. It started with the wind, slow at first, whispering through the trees, then swelling into a low howl that made the shutters rattle. A full moon hung over Millridge, but its light was weak, clouded by thin, drifting mist. The air felt charged, heavy with something unsaid. Rex could feel it before anyone else did. The stillness between heartbeats. The way the birds had gone silent hours earlier. The faint metallic taste of threat on the air. He lay near the crib, his eyes half closed, but his ears twitched with every sound. Every creak of floorboards, every sigh from the fire. Noah slept peacefully, one hand curled around the corner of his blanket. Clara had finally fallen asleep in the chair near the hearth, exhaustion softening the lines of fear etched across her face. The clock ticked slowly. Each second felt like a warning. Then, somewhere outside, a branch snapped. Rex was on his feet instantly. His body tensed, fur rising along his spine. Nothing. His ears swiveled toward the window, catching the faintest trace of movement, a shadow against shadow. He moved toward the door without a sound. Outside, the world was black and silver. Mist rolled over the fields, and beyond it, near the tree line, faint lights blinked. Not firelight. Not stars. Headlights, moving slowly, deliberately. He growled low in his throat, pressing his body against the door. From the chair, Claire stirred. Rex? Her voice was soft, half-dreaming. He turned to her, eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. That was enough. She woke fully, pulse quickening. What is it, Tarek? What? Then she heard it. A faint hum, distant but steady. She stood, heart pounding. Samuel? She whispered. Within moments, Samuel was awake, pulling on his coats, the shotgun already in his hands. He moved to the window beside Rex and froze. But God help us, he muttered. They're back. 2 trucks now. One stopped near the old well at the edge of the property. The other idled farther down the road, its lights cutting pale lines through the mist. Men stepped out, silhouettes shifting in the fog. Clara's voice trembled. You think they're... Samuel's eyes didn't leave the window. They're looking for something, or someone. Rex growled again, a deep, guttural sound that made the hair on Clara's arms stand up. The next minutes unfolded like a slow nightmare. Men moved closer. One carried a flashlight, its beam cutting across the field. It stopped briefly on the fence, then swept toward the house. Clara gasped and pulled the curtain shut, but it was too late. The light lingered for a second on the glass before drifting away. Rex stood perfectly still, muscles taut, eyes blazing. Blazing? We have to go, Clara whispered. Oh, Samuel, we have to take the baby, and... Oh, no, he said sharply. They'll see us if we run. Clara clutched Noah close, the baby now stirring in confusion. Sensing the fear in her heartbeat, Rex positioned himself between them and the door. Minutes crawled by like hours. The sound of boots on gravel drew nearer. Voices, low, male, rough, carried through the air. Said he was headed north, had a kid with him. Can't be far. There's a house here. Up. Tracks too. Rex's heart hammered. He lowered his body, eyes trained on the door. The footsteps stopped side. Someone rapped softly on the wood. Once, twice. Anyone home? A voice called. Calm. Too calm. Clara's breath caught. She pressed Noah tighter to her chest, tears welling in her eyes. Rex's growl rumbled through the floorboards, low and dangerous. Anyone? The voice asked again. Then a pause. We're just looking for something that belongs to us. Rex's lips curled back over his teeth. The door creaked as the handle turned slightly, testing. Clara's shaking hand found the iron poker near the hearth. She gripped it hard. Then, a sudden crash outside. Samuel's voice roared through the dark. Get off my land. A gunshot shattered the night. Clara screamed. The baby cried. Rex leapt toward the door just as it flew open. One of the men stumbled inside, flashlight beam jerking wildly. His eyes widened as he met Rex's snarl, and then the German shepherd was airborne. The sound was pure chaos. A snarl, a shout, the crack of glass. The man fell backward, crashing into the table. The flashlight clattered to the floor, rolling until its beam froze on the crib. Rex stood over the man, teeth bared, eyes blazing like fire. The man reached for something, metal glinting at his waist, but Rex lunged again, jaws closing on his wrist. A scream tore through the room. Outside, Samuel fired again. Another man yelled, "We've got the wrong house." But Rex didn't hear. He only knew one truth: protect the child. He released the man's wrist just long enough to shove him toward the door, forcing him out into the mud. The man scrambled up and ran, clutching his arm. Clara, sobbing, slammed the door shut behind him and bolted it. She fell to her knees beside Noah's crib, clutching the crying baby. Rex turned, chest heaving, fur matted with mud and blood. Samuel burst back inside moments later, face pale. You all right? Clara nodded, voice shaking. He saved us. Samuel's gaze fell on Rex, and for the first time he saw not just a dog, but a soldier, a guardian, forged by love and instinct. He knelt beside him, hand trembling as it met Rex's head. Good boy, he whispered. Good, brave boy. Rex leaned against him briefly, panting hard. But even as Samuel tried to catch his breath, Rex's eyes drifted back toward the window. The headlights were gone now, swallowed by fog. But he knew better. The fields were marked with tracks, the smell of fuel still clinging to the air. Sheriff Hawkins arrived before sunrise, grim-faced, found their tire marks heading east, he said, but no sign they stopped anywhere else. Whoever they are, they're organized. Samuel nodded, exhausted. "Oh, be back." The sheriff didn't argue. Clara stood on the porch, holding Noah close. Rex sat beside her, eyes scanning the tree line. The baby was quiet now, eyes wide, watching him. Even in that small, fragile stare, Rex could feel something deeper, a silent understanding. A silent understanding. He'd protected the baby once again, but the cost was rising. Each night, the shadows crept closer. He leaned his head against Clara's leg, eyes closing for a brief moment. The scent of smoke still lingered on the wind. The shadows had names now, faces, and Rex would remember them all. The sun rose pale and uncertain over Mill Ridge. The mist still clung to the earth, curling between the wooden fences and fields like breath from a sleeping giant. The village stirred slowly, but not with its usual warmth. The gunfire from the night before had spread like rumor and rot. By dawn, everyone knew that something dark had come crawling back into their quiet valley. Yet inside the little cottage on the hill, silence ruled. Rex sat by the window, his gaze fixed on the horizon. The glass reflected his amber eyes, sharp, unwavering. Every few seconds, his ears flicked toward the faintest sound. A crow's cry, a door latch, the whisper of the wind. He wasn't resting. He was reading the world. Behind him, Clara rocked Noah gently in her arms. The baby had finally stopped crying, exhaustion pulling him into fragile sleep. The faint warmth of the morning fire wrapped around them, but it didn't touch the cold beneath their ribs. Samuel moved about the house quietly, checking the locks again, even though he'd already done it twice. "A sheriff says they'll patrol the road for a few days," he said more to himself than to anyone else. Still, can't shake the feeling it's not enough. Rex turned his head slightly, watching him. Samuel caught the look and exhaled. That afternoon, the sheriff returned with 2 deputies. They inspected the tracks again, measured the boot prints, and asked the same questions over and over. Clara answered what she could, her voice soft but steady. Rex never took his eyes off them. When one deputy crouched near the doorway, the same threshold where the man had broken in, Rex moved closer, his body tense. Not a growl, not a bark, just presence. The deputy glanced up. "He doesn't trust us much, does he?" Clara shook her head faintly. "He trusts what he's seen." Sheriff Hawkins smiled faintly at that. "Good, a dog like that. He's worth more than a dozen guards." Samuel nodded, his jaw tight. He already proved that. After the men left, the air inside the house seemed to exhale. But Rex didn't relax. He moved from window to window, nose pressed to the glass, scanning the fields, the trees, the road, every small motion outside. The flick of a branch, the drift of smoke from a neighbor's chimney was cataloged, understood, dismissed, or remembered. He wasn't just watching anymore. He was learning. Days passed. No trucks. No shadows in the mist, but the unease never faded. Samuel tried to return to his work in the fields. Clara tried to laugh again. The baby began to babble more, reaching for everything within arm's length. Spoons, flowers, even Rex's tail. And through it all, Rex stayed close, always within arm's reach of Noah. When Clara washed clothes by the stream, Rex lay at her side, eyes scanning the tree line. When Samuel worked in the yard, Rex followed the sound of the hammer, but never let the house out of sight. When Noah took his afternoon naps, Rex sat beside the crib like a statue carved from devotion. The villagers noticed. "I never seen a dog like that," said Mrs. Hollis one afternoon as she passed the cottage. "He watches the baby like he's guarding a crown." Clara smiled faintly. "He's guarding something more than that." She didn't explain further. How could she? How could she put into words what it meant to wake every morning and see the same pair of amber eyes watching over her child like a living prayer? That evening, as the last light faded into violet, Rex wandered the perimeter of the property again. The sky was clear, stars blooming slowly above the hills. It should have been peaceful, but peace never fooled him anymore. The mud was dry now, but faint impressions remained, reminders of the night when the world had tilted toward danger. He lowered his nose to the earth, sniffed, and froze. The scent was faint, old, but real. Oil, metal, smoke. His tail stiffened. He let out a low rumble deep in his chest. From the porch, Samuel looked up. "Rex, you got something?" The dog turned, eyes fierce, then glanced back toward the woods. Samuel grabbed the lantern. "All right, boy, show me." Together they walked the edge of the field, the lantern light through long, uncertain shadows. Rex moved ahead, nose low, pausing every few steps. At one point, he stopped dead, staring into the thick brush near the riverbank. Samuel lifted the lantern higher and saw it. A boot print. Fresh. He swallowed hard. He whispered, "I'm not done." Rex's growl was soft, steady. Not fear, but confirmation. They returned to the house quietly. Clara's face went pale when Samuel told her. "What do we do?" she whispered. "We stay ready," he said, "and we trust him." He looked down at Rex. "Oh, he's got instincts we don't." That night, they left the lamps burning low and the fire alive. Samuel sat near the window with his shotgun, while Clara rocked Noah in her arms. Rex lay near the door, motionless but awake, the sentinel of their fragile peace. Hours passed. The moon climbed higher. Then, just before dawn, Rex lifted his head. His ears twitched. The air shifted. Something moved in the dark. He rose slowly, staring toward the window. A flicker of motion, too low for a man, too quick for wind. His nose caught it next, the musky tang of fear, sweat, and gasoline. He growled once, low and warning. Samuel stirred instantly, gripping the shotgun. "Where?" Rex stepped toward the door, body coiled like a spring. His gaze burned into the mist outside. And then, silence. Nothing, just the sigh of the wind. But when dawn finally broke, the signs were there again. Tracks. Circling the fence, watching, testing, waiting. By mid-morning, Sheriff Hawkins returned with his men. "It looks like someone's scouting you," he said grimly. "They didn't break in this time, just looked around." Clara shuddered. For what? The sheriff hesitated. It could be the child. Could be the child. Could be the dog. Could be both. The words hung heavy in the air. Rex stood between them, silent but certain. He didn't need to understand the words. He already knew what they meant. The threat wasn't gone. It had simply grown smarter. That evening, as shadows lengthened across the fields, Rex stood watch again at the window. His reflection shimmered faintly against the glass, a silent guardian in the half-light. Noah, crawling now, giggled softly from his blanket, reaching toward him. Rex turned, stepping closer. The baby pressed his tiny hand to the glass, just as Rex placed his paw against the same spot. 2 lives. One heartbeat. Outside, the woods waited. Inside, love stood guard. And as night fell, the moon rose over the cottage. Bright, cold, and unwavering. Rex did not sleep. He would never sleep deeply again. He was the watcher now. Not just a survivor, not just a savior. He was the guardian. The guardian. The wind came first, low and uneasy, like a voice that had forgotten how to whisper. Then came the smell of rain. Sharp. Metallic. Heavy. By late afternoon, the sky had folded into itself, bruised purple and gray. The trees along the ridge bent low, their branches scraping the air like claws. Rex stood by the porch, fur bristling, as thunder rolled in the distance. Inside the cottage, Clara gathered blankets while Samuel secured the windows. "It's turning bad fast," he muttered, hammering one last board across the loose frame. "We might lose power again." Rex's gaze flicked to the crib. To the crib. Noah sat inside, babbling softly, clutching the worn corner of a blue blanket. His eyes followed the flicker of lightning outside, wide but curious. The dog moved closer, pressing his body against the crib side as if to anchor the baby to the earth itself. Another crack of thunder split the air, louder this time. The cottage trembled, the lamp flickered, once twice, then dimmed. The storm had arrived. Hours passed beneath the roar of wind and water. The roof groaned, and the old chimney wailed. Samuel and Clara sat close to the hearth, keeping the fire alive. But Rex never settled. He paced from window to door, from door to crib, his ears twitching to every sound that didn't belong. Outside, lightning ripped through the sky, lighting the valley in stark flashes of white. Each time the world brightened, Rex's shadow stretched tall and watchful across the walls. Clara reached out, resting a trembling hand on his back. "It's all right, boy," she whispered. "We're safe in here." But Rex's muscles didn't relax. His instincts said otherwise. Something about this storm felt wrong. Just after midnight, the wind reached its peak. The cottage shook. Rain pounded the roof like fists. Samuel rushed to the back door as water began seeping in through the cracks. "Damn it," he hissed, pushing rags against the leak. "We'll need sandbags tomorrow." A sound cut him off. Not thunder. Not wind. A sharp, metallic clang. It came from outside. The direction of the shed. The direction of the shed. Rex's head snapped up. His ears flattened. Then, without waiting for command, he bolted for the door. "A Rex!" Clara shouted. But the dog was already gone. The storm swallowed him whole. Rain lashed his face. Wind clawed at his fur. But he ran, through mud, through darkness, guided by scent and instinct. The air reeked of rust and fear. He reached the shed and stopped, paws sinking into wet earth. The door hung loose, the lock snapped clean. Lightning flashed, and for a split second, he saw it. A figure, moving inside. Rex bared his teeth, growled low and dangerous. The figure turned. Another flash. A gloved hand, a shadowed face. The intruder cursed and lunged for the open back wall. Rex leapt. The man swung something, a metal pipe, but the shepherd was faster. He hit with the force of rage and memory, knocking the intruder into the mud. Teeth met fabric and flesh. The man screamed. Then, gunfire. A deafening crack tore through the storm. The bullet missed, splintering the shed's frame, but the sound sent Rex staggering back for an instant. It was all the intruder needed. He scrambled to his feet and vanished into the woods. Rex barked after him, once, twice, before turning and sprinting back to the house. When he burst through the door, drenched and panting, Clara cried out in relief. Rex! Samuel looked up from the window, his face pale. What the hell happened? Rex barked again, circling toward the baby's crib, then toward the window, warning them, telling them, not over, not yet. Samuel grabbed his rifle and peered through the glass, but the rain was too thick. Only darkness and flashes of lightning. He locked the door again and backed away slowly. Whoever it was, they're still out there. Clara held Noah close, her voice trembling. But why come now, in this storm? Samuel's answer came hollow, because no one else would. The wind raged for hours more as if mirroring their fear. The power died completely. They lit candles and huddled near the hearth. Rex lay beside Noah, every muscle alert even in stillness. His breathing was shallow, focused. His fur was soaked, streaked with mud and blood, but his eyes never dimmed. Every flash of lightning revealed the same image, a mother rocking her child, a father gripping a rifle, and a dog guarding both like a sentinel carved from stormlight. It was a portrait of survival, fragile, trembling, but unbroken. When dawn came, the world outside lay shattered. Trees torn from their roots, fences broken, the fields drowned in pools of brown water. Samuel stepped outside first, mud clutching at his boots. The shed's ruined, he said softly. And the lock, completely smashed. Clara came out behind him, Noah bundled in her arms. Do you think they'll come back? Samuel didn't answer. His eyes drifted to Rex, who stood on the porch, nose lifted to the wind. The shepherd's fur caught the faint rays of morning light, gold through the grime. Rex took one step forward, sniffed the air, then let out a deep, low bark. He wasn't afraid anymore. The storm had passed, but the war had only just begun. Inside, the cottage felt different now. Quieter, heavier. Clara washed Rex's wounds, whispering comfort as she worked. Noah watched with wide eyes, cooing softly each time Rex winced. The dog endured it silently. When she finished, Clara wrapped a towel around him and pressed her forehead to his. You saved us again, she whispered. Again, she whispered. Rex closed his eyes, leaning into the touch. Outside, sunlight broke through the clouds for the first time in days. And for that single trembling moment, it felt like peace might return. But deep inside Rex's chest, where instinct and fear and love had tangled into one, something still burned. A memory, a warning, a promise. If they came again, he would be ready. The storm might have passed over the valley, but inside him, the storm still lived. Morning came with deceptive quiet. The sun rose pale over Mill Ridge, washing the flooded fields in gold. Birds returned hesitantly, testing their voices after a night that had nearly torn the world apart. The storm was gone, but its echo lingered. In the broken fences, the scattered branches, and the hearts that hadn't stopped racing. Rex stood by the back door, eyes on the tree line. His fur had dried, but the tension hadn't. Every sound, the creak of a shutter, the rustle of leaves, seemed louder than before. Inside, Samuel checked the rifle again. It hadn't left his hands since last night. Clara moved slowly through the kitchen, her eyes shadowed from sleeplessness, rocking Noah in her arms. The baby had stopped crying hours ago, but he clung tighter than ever, his small fingers tangled in her collar. The air felt heavy, like the world was holding its breath. Maybe it's over, Clara whispered. Samuel didn't look up. No, people like that, they don't stop because of a storm. Rex turned his head at the sound of his voice. His tail didn't move, his ears pointed toward the fields. Something faint, but real, brushed the edge of his senses. He stepped forward and growled softly. Samuel froze. What is it, boy? From the road below the hill came a faint rumble. Clara frowned. Is that a truck? Samuel muttered. It's too early for delivery. Stay inside. He moved to the window, pushing aside the curtain just enough to see. Dust rose behind a small pickup crawling toward their property. Its engine coughed, then settled into a steady hum. Rex's hackles lifted. The truck stopped halfway up the path. Two men stepped out. One wore a heavy coat despite the warmth, the other a hat pulled low over his face. They said nothing, just looked toward the cottage. Samuel's stomach dropped. "Hey, same ones," he breathed. Clara's arms tightened around Noah. What did they want? He didn't answer. He didn't have to. Rex barked once. Sharp, deep, commanding. The men froze. One said something the wind carried away, then turned back toward the truck. The engine roared to life again, reversing slowly, tires sliding on the wet dirt. "Easker?" "Oh, they're leaving," Clara said, almost disbelieving. But Rex didn't relax. He ran to the back of the house, jumped onto the porch railing, and stared into the woods. His body was coiled, tense, ready. They're not leaving," Samuel said. They're circling?" Within minutes, the forest erupted in sound. Arbizon branches cracked. Feet rushed over wet ground. Samuel shouted, "I get inside!" He slammed the back door shut just as figures appeared in the distance. 3, maybe 4. They weren't walking. They were running. The windows rattled. The dogs in the neighboring farms began to bark. Rex bolted to the window, teeth bared. His eyes locked on the nearest man, the one from the shed. The man raised his arm, something metal gleaming in his hand. Samuel dove to the side. The glass shattered. Clara screamed. Clara screamed! The baby wailed. Rex launched himself forward. Time fracture. He hit the door before the second shot fired, bursting into the open with a snarl that split the air. Mud flew beneath his paws as he raced toward the figures. The men hesitated, caught off guard. One swung a stick. Another aimed again, but the shepherd was already upon them. The first man went down with a cry as Rex's weight crashed into him. The gun fell into the mud. The second stumbled back, shouting for the others to retreat. "Get the damn dog off," but Rex didn't. All the fear, the nights of waiting, the storm, the scent of Noah's tears, they poured into a single furious motion. He bit, dodged, lunged, a living storm of muscle and will. Then one of them raised a crowbar and swung. The sound cracked through the valley. Rex fell sideways, stunned. "Samuel!" Clara's voice pierced the chaos. He burst through the door, rifle raised, firing once into the air. "Get back!" he roared. "You're done here." The men hesitated, then bolted for the trees, dragging their injured companion with them. The truck's engine screamed to life moments later, retreating down the hill in a cloud of dust. Silence followed, the kind that only comes after violence. Clara dropped to her knees beside Rex. Oh God, no. Blood matted the fur near his shoulder, not deep, but enough to make her tremble. He whined softly, licking her wrist. "You brave thing," she whispered through tears. "You saved us again." Samuel crouched beside them, jaw tight. "They won't be back soon," he said, though his voice lacked conviction. Rex looked up at him, eyes glassy, unfocused, then shifted his gaze to the crib inside. Noah was there crying, reaching toward the open doorway. Clara turned, heartbreaking at the sight. She lifted the baby into her arms and brought him close. Rex forced himself upright, one leg trembling. He limped forward until he was close enough for Noah's tiny hand to touch his muzzle. The baby stopped crying instantly. His small fingers brushed the dog's wet fur, and a sound, soft, almost like a sigh, left his lips. Peace for a second. Later, as Samuel called the sheriff on the crackling radio, Clara cleaned Rex's wound. The blood had clotted, the cut shallow, but she saw the exhaustion behind his eyes. "You rest now," she murmured. "You've done enough." But Rex's gaze stayed fixed on the window. Even with pain burning in his muscles, he refused to lie down. His heart still raced. His breath came in sharp bursts. He could still smell them, far away but not gone. In his mind, danger was not defeated. It had only changed shape. He turned his head toward Noah once more. The baby sat in Clara's lap, clutching his blanket. When their eyes met, the room seemed to still. That bond, the silent promise between them, was stronger than fear, stronger than pain, stronger than pain. Whatever came next, Rex knew one thing with primal certainty. He would always find a way to reach him, even if it meant running through fire. That evening, the sheriff arrived with a dozen men. They took statements, measured footprints, followed tracks into the woods. But by dusk, the trail vanished. Whoever they were, Sheriff Hawkins said grimly. They planned it. They'll wait for the right moment to try again. Samuel looked out over the horizon. Then we'll be ready. Rex stood beside him, bandaged but unbroken, watching the same fading road. The sheriff gave a low whistle. That's one hell of a dog you've got. Samuel smiled faintly. He's more than that. As the last patrol truck disappeared into the distance, the sun dipped below the hills, bathing the valley in amber light. Inside the cottage, Noah drifted to sleep in Clara's arms. Rex lay near the crib, eyes open, breath steady. A faint breeze moved through the broken window, cool against the fire's glow. And for one fragile, fleeting moment, everything felt still. The worst had passed, but the road ahead was far from safe. For now, though, they had survived. By a breath. By a heartbeat. By the narrowest escape. Morning arrived soft and golden, the kind of light that almost made you forget the night before. Almost. The cottage stood quiet under the hush of dawn. Dew clung to the tall grass outside, and the scent of wet earth filled the air. Inside, the faint crackle of the fireplace was the only sound, slow, rhythmic, like a heartbeat trying to remember calm. Clara sat by the window, rocking Noah gently. He slept soundly now. One hand curled near his cheek, the other holding a corner of Rex's torn blue blanket. Rex lay nearby, his head resting on his paws. A fresh bandage wrapped around his shoulder, stained faintly with dried blood. His breathing was steady but shallow, every rise of his chest a reminder of how close they'd come. Samuel poured a cup of coffee, the bitter smell mixing with the faint sweetness of the morning. He looked at the dog, then at Clara. He's not just a pet anymore. He's part of us. Us. Clara smiled faintly, exhaustion in her eyes. He always was. Outside, the world was still. Too still. By midday, Samuel went to repair the broken windows and clean the debris scattered by the storm and attack. He worked with quiet focus, every strike of the hammer echoing through the valley. Clara stayed close to the fire, humming softly while Noah slept. Rex dozed beside them, ears twitching every time the wind shifted. Even in rest, he was alert. His dreams came in flashes. The smell of mud, the glint of metal, the sound of Noah's cry cutting through the storm. Each time, he jerked awake, chest heaving, before realizing he was safe again. But peace didn't sit easily in his bones anymore. When Clara reached over to stroke his fur, he leaned into her touch, but kept one eye open. Somewhere inside, he knew danger never truly left. It only slept. Later that afternoon, Sheriff Hawkins returned. Mud still streaked his boots, his face drawn with fatigue. They vanished into the eastern woods, he said. We followed the tire tracks for 2 miles before they broke off near the quarry. My guess, they've got a hideout somewhere remote. Samuel frowned. You think they'll come back? The sheriff hesitated. Men like that don't give up easy. But we'll have a watch on the road from now on. Clara's arms tightened around Noah. So we wait? Hawkins nodded. And stay cautious. He turned his gaze to Rex, who sat beside the hearth, watching him with that steady, intelligent stare. He's the reason you're all alive, the sheriff said softly. If there's anything we can do to help him, you just say. Clara smiled, her voice barely a whisper. He doesn't need much, just love and a chance to rest. But even as she spoke, Rex's ears flicked toward the open window. Outside, a distant crow called, sharp, echoing through the hills. He listened until the sound faded, then exhaled slowly. Rest would have to wait. That evening, the sky burned orange and pink, the storm's memory replaced by light. The family gathered on the porch for the first time since the attack. Samuel fixed the last of the shutters, while Clara laid a quilt on the steps. Noah sat in her lap, giggling as he reached for the fading sunlight. Rex lay near the edge of the porch, head high, eyes scanning the horizon. Every now and then, his gaze drifted toward Noah, then back to the road. It was a rhythm now. Guard, check, breathe, repeat. See that? Samuel said softly, nodding toward them. He doesn't even blink unless he's sure everything's safe. Clara looked at Rex with quiet awe. He's watching for both of us. The baby's laughter filled the air, a sound pure enough to mend something broken inside them all. Even Rex's ears perked up. He turned, rose carefully, and walked closer. Noah reached for him, tiny fingers brushing his nose. For the first time since the chaos, Rex's tail moved. A slow, gentle wag. Peace, tentative and fragile, settled like dust in the air. But as night approached, unease crept back in. The woods grew darker faster than usual, shadows pooling at their edges. The insects quieted. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Rex stood again, ears pricking forward. Clara noticed. What is it, boy? She whispered. He didn't bark. Didn't growl. Didn't growl. Just stared. Samuel came up behind them. Is something out there? The dog didn't move. His gaze locked on the same point beyond the field. A faint movement, too far to see clearly. Then the wind shifted, and a scent drifted in. Smoke. Samuel grabbed the lantern. Stay here. But before he could take a step, Rex moved. He trotted down the porch stairs, slow but deliberate, head low, tail stiff. The light from the lantern caught in his eyes, turning them to amber fire. Samuel, don't let him go too far. Solara called, clutching Noah tighter, but Rex didn't go far. He stopped near the fence, sniffed the air, and then turned back, barking once. Not alarmed, but alert, Samuel exhaled. Just someone burning wood down the road, he said, after a moment. Or probably clearing debris. Clara relaxed slightly. You see danger everywhere now. He gave a tired smile. Because it's there, Clara. Sometimes we just don't notice it. Rex, still by the fence, looked back at them, tail low but calm. The tension in the air began to fade. He had checked. He had confirmed. The night was safe. For now. Later, when the world slept, Rex remained awake beside Noah's crib. The soft creak of the rocking chair, the baby's slow breaths, the faint hum of crickets. It all wrapped around him like a lullaby. His body ached, but his eyes stayed open. He didn't know peace the way humans did. His peace was in watching, listening, being there, between danger and safety, between fear and hope. He turned his head toward the crib. Noah stirred, letting out a small sound, half sigh, half dream. Rex lowered his muzzle gently against the wooden frame. The baby's tiny hand reached out, resting on the bandage at his shoulder. Rex didn't move. Their breaths synced. One deep, one small, both steady. The house stood still. The fire dimmed. The night carried on, quiet and heavy with promise. And in that quiet, somewhere between breath and hope, the world felt whole again, if only for a moment. Dawn broke over Millridge with the color of steel. Cold light, no warmth, no bird song. A low fog curled across the fields, swallowing fences and trees, until the world looked like it was holding its secrets close. Inside the cottage, the family woke slowly, still carrying the heaviness of unspoken fears. Clara moved quietly through the kitchen, preparing tea. Samuel sat by the window, eyes distant, watching the horizon. Rex lay near the door, gaze fixed on the same fog-covered line where earth met sky. It had been 3 days since the men attacked. No trucks, no shadows, but unease had settled into every creak of the house. The calm before the next storm. Arvin, Samuel sighed. We should leave, Clara. Maybe head west for a while. Somewhere safer. Clara looked down at Noah, who was playing on the floor beside Rex, tugging at the dog's ear with innocent laughter. And go where? She whispered. This is all we have. Rex shifted his weight, resting his head beside Noah's tiny hand. The baby pressed his palm against Rex's muzzle, trusting, unafraid. Samuel's jaw tightened. And then we fortify. Make this place impenetrable if we have to. But even as he said it, he knew. No wall could stop the kind of darkness that hunted them. By midday, the sheriff's truck appeared on the road. Sheriff Hawkins stepped out, looking grimmer than usual. They found something, he said quietly when Samuel met him outside. Half a mile from here. An old campfire, boot prints, tire marks. Samuel's stomach dropped. They were that close? Hawkins nodded. And they weren't traveling light. Could be they're scouting again. Could be they're waiting. Clara stood in the doorway, her arms wrapped around Noah. Waiting for what? The sheriff hesitated. For an opportunity. He looked down at Rex, who was now standing beside Samuel, hackles slightly raised. You keep trusting him, Hawkins said. Sometimes animals sense what we can't. After the sheriff left, the day moved in uneasy silence. The fog didn't lift. The sun never broke through. It was as if the world itself refused to reveal what hid beneath its gray veil. By evening, Clara rocked Noah by the fire, humming softly. Samuel sat nearby, cleaning the rifle again. Rex rested by the window. His breathing was steady, but his eyes, sharp, burning, never left the dark beyond the glass. At first faint, almost harmless. A trace of ash carried on the night breeze. But within minutes, it thickened, clawing through the cracks in the windows, seeping beneath the door. Samuel woke with a start, eyes snapping open. Clara, she was already sitting up, clutching Noah close. Oh God, Sam. He leapt out of bed, rushing to the window. Orange light flickered against the fog outside. For one heart-stopping moment, it looked like dawn breaking. But it wasn't dawn. It was fire. Flames rippled through the field, devouring the dry grass and waves. Sparks hissed and leapt, licking the old wooden fence. The wind carried embers straight toward the cottage. Samuel's voice was raw. They said it. They came back. Rex barked sharply from the hallway, limping but determined. His wounds still healing, his body fragile, but his spirit was unbroken. He moved to the front door, growling low. No, Samuel said firmly. You stay inside, boy. I'll. The crash of shattering glass cut him off. A bottle of flaming liquid burst through the window, rolling across the floor in a burst of orange. Clara screamed as fire leapt up the curtains. Get Noah out of that. Samuel shouted. On now! The world turned red. Smoke clawed at their throats, heat pressed against their skin. The baby began to cry, a piercing, terrified sound that cut through the roar of flames. Clara wrapped Noah in a blanket, coughing, her eyes stinging. Samuel grabbed a wet towel, swinging it toward the fire. But every swing only pushed back the inevitable. The room was becoming an inferno. Rex barked again, louder, commanding. He ran toward the back door, looking back, urging them to follow. Samuel saw it, the same fierce intelligence that had saved them before. Go, Clara! Follow him! She stumbled after the dog, clutching Noah tightly. The fire spread along the walls, the ceiling crackling and sagging. Rex led them low to the ground, beneath the worst of the smoke, moving fast despite his limp. They reached the kitchen. Flames danced across the cabinets, the exit nearly blocked. Rex pushed against the door with his shoulder, growling, forcing it open just enough for Clara to squeeze through. Fresh air hit her like a wave. She gasped and turned back. Rex! Samuel appeared seconds later, coughing violently, carrying a small satchel. Go! Head to the creek. The wind shifted, a wall of fire surging toward them from the side. The path to the creek, gone. Samuel's voice cracked. You were trapped. Rex barked once, sharp and certain, then darted toward the side of the barn. The barn? It was old, but the back wall faced the forest. Thinner wood, a way through. He was leading them again. They ran. The ground burned in patches, each step a race against time. The baby coughed, crying weakly in Clara's arms. Samuel shielded them both as the roof of the barn began to glow, embers falling like stars. Rex reached the far wall and began digging, clawing furiously at the rotted boards. His paws bled, but he didn't stop. Every motion was desperate, urgent. A creature driven by something beyond instinct. Clara knelt beside him. A good boy. Please hurry. Samuel grabbed a fallen shovel, swinging it against the boards. 1 hit, 2, 3. The wood split, light pouring through. Clara ducked through the gap, clutching Noah close to her chest. The cool air outside hit her lungs like salvation. She stumbled onto the wet earth of the forest floor. Behind her, Samuel crawled through, then turned back for Rex. But the barn's roof gave a groan, a low, thunderous moan of surrender, before collapsing inward. Flames erupted in a wave of heat and sparks. Rex! Samuel screamed. For a moment, there was only fire. Then, a sound. A bark. Hoarse but alive. Through the smoke, Rex burst from the gap, fur smoldering, eyes wild. He hit the ground hard, rolling, before limping toward Clara and Noah. Samuel caught him, dragging him clear, as the barn collapsed behind them. The night exploded in light. They didn't stop running until they reached the riverbank. Clara collapsed, coughing, clutching Noah as he whimpered softly. Samuel dropped beside her, chest heaving. Rex stood a few feet away, soaked and trembling, his sides rising and falling in shallow breaths. Samuel crawled toward him. You did it again, boy. You got us out. Rex looked up, eyes glassy but aware. His tail flicked once, weakly, then he lowered himself beside Noah. The baby reached out, touching the dog's muzzle. In that tiny gesture, soot-streaked fingers against burnt fur, something sacred passed between them. The night fell silent, except for the crackle of fire dying behind them and the soft rush of the river. Clara whispered, He saved us all. Samuel nodded. Through everything, even fire. Rex closed his eyes, exhaustion overtaking him. The smell of ash clung to his fur, but beneath it was something purer. The scent of earth, water, and life. Hours later, when dawn finally came, the valley was a scar. Smoke drifted like ghosts across the field. The cottage was gone. Only blackened timbers remained. Yet by the river, under the pale morning light, there was peace. Samuel sat with Clara, Noah sleeping safely in her arms. Rex lay beside them, his head resting on Samuel's knee. The rising sun caught the edge of the water, turning it gold. Like the light from a promise kept, Samuel stroked Rex's fur gently. You did what no man could have done. You gave him, us, another day. Rex opened his eyes just enough to look at Noah one more time. The baby stirred, then reached out, curling his small hand around a lock of the dog's fur. In that fragile touch, the fire, the fear, the pain, all of it faded. Only love remained. The fire had passed, but its echo still haunted the land. Ash drifted across the fields like gray snow, settling on the black skeletons of trees. The once bright cottage was nothing but a shadow now. A memory burned into the earth. Days passed in quiet rebuilding. Samuel and Clara found shelter in an old hunter's cabin near the woods, a place with no ghosts, no smoke, just silence and time. Noah's laughter slowly returned, and small broken giggles that cut through the stillness like sun through fog. And Rex, he healed slower. His burns had scabbed, his limp deepened. Some mornings he could barely stand, but every time Noah cried, he would rise, no hesitation, no complaint, and lie beside the crib until the baby smiled again.
The baby.
He smiled again. Clara watched him often, her heart aching. He's fading, she whispered one evening. Samuel shook his head. He's fighting. That's all he's ever done. But when Samuel looked at Rex lying near the hearth, eyes half open, chest moving with shallow effort, he knew the truth. The dog had given everything and was still giving more. That night, the wind changed. It came from the east, carrying the faint hum of engines. Unfamiliar, wrong. Samuel stepped outside, scanning the dark. Headlights flickered in the distance, winding along the ridge road. Not again. He ran back inside. Clara, take Noah. Take Noah. Down to the cellar? Now. She didn't ask why. The fear in his voice said enough. Rex pushed himself up, wobbling. His body protested every movement, but he followed anyway. Always between the baby and the door. Samuel grabbed the rifle and peered through the window. 2 trucks stopped at the edge of the field. Men climbed out, the same ones who had started the fire. The cowards don't quit easy, he muttered. Clara clutched Noah close. Sam, please, don't do this alone. He turned toward her, eyes hard. I'm not. Rex stood beside him, steadying his balance. The first shot shattered the window. Glass sprayed across the floor as Samuel ducked. He fired back once, warning. The echo cracked through the valley. Get low, he shouted. Rex barked, loud, deep, his body trembling from the effort. He moved toward the sound, toward danger, as if pain no longer existed. Another shot whistled through the open frame. Samuel returned fire, hitting the fence post near the men. One of them yelled, Sam, we can't stay. Clara cried. He looked back, the cellar. The door at the floor's corner, half hidden under blankets. Go! She hesitated only a second before rushing down the steps with Noah in her arms. Samuel stayed by the door, reloading. The gunfire had stopped, too suddenly. Silence. But the dog didn't listen. Outside, the field shimmered with moonlight. The air was thick with tension. Too quiet, too still. Samuel stepped onto the porch, rifle raised. You want to finish this? He shouted. Come do it like men. From behind the barn, a figure moved, a tall man with a scar across his cheek. Their leader. He smirked. We just came for what's ours. You burned a home, Samuel said coldly. You won't touch this one. The man lifted his weapon, but before he could aim, a blur shot through the darkness. Rex? The German shepherd hit the man full force, teeth sinking into his arm. The gun fired wild into the air as both tumbled into the dirt. Samuel's heart stopped. Rex! He ran forward, but another man appeared from the side, aiming his rifle. Samuel fired first, a single, perfect shot. The stranger dropped. Rex and the leader rolled, the man screaming, kicking, trying to break free. But Rex held on, eyes blazing with the fire of 100 unspoken vows. The man reached for the fallen gun. Rex, down, Samuel shouted. Rex hesitated, a fatal heartbeat. The man swung the rifle's butt down hard, striking Rex in the ribs. The crack was sickening. Rex stumbled back, gasping. The man aimed again. Samuel fired. The echo tore through the night. The man fell, his weapon tumbling into the mud. Silence followed, heavy, endless silence. Samuel dropped the rifle and ran to Rex. No. The dog lay still, chest rising shallowly, blood pooling beneath him. Stay with me, boy. Please. Samuel pressed his hands against the wound, desperate, trembling. You're okay. You're okay. Rex's eyes found him. Calm, tired, knowing. Clara rushed out, clutching Noah. Her breath caught when she saw them. Sam, he shook his head, eyes wet. He saved us. Again. Rex's gaze shifted to the baby. Noah reached toward him, a small hand brushing the dog's nose. Rex's tail moved once, faintly. A soft whine escaped his throat, low and tender, the sound he used to make when the baby laughed. His breathing slowed. Clara knelt beside them, tears spilling freely. He's fading. Samuel swallowed hard. He's at peace. Rex's eyes fluttered shut. His chest lifted once more, then fell still. Kerem, the dawn came quietly, pale and gentle, as if afraid to disturb the dead. They buried Rex beneath the oak near the river, the same place he had once led them to safety. The earth was soft, the air damp with morning mist. Samuel placed Rex's collar beside the grave. Clara knelt, holding Noah close. Noah close. The baby reached out, touching the mound of soil, then looked up toward the rising sun. A single beam of light broke through the clouds, landing across the grave. Golden, steady, warm. Clara whispered, voice trembling, "He was our lifeline." Samuel nodded, unable to speak. And though the forest was silent, it felt as though the world itself bowed in respect. Every rustle of leaves, every breath of wind carrying the echo of the dog's vow. Protect. All. That night, when Noah slept, Samuel found a photograph among the ashes, one of Rex lying beside the crib, taken months ago. The edges were scorched, but the image remained. Loyal eyes, gentle smile. He placed it on the mantle of the new home, above the fire. And as the flames flickered, it seemed, for the briefest moment, that the light in those eyes flickered too, not as memory, but as presence. The lifeline remained. Unbroken spring came quietly to Millridge. No fanfare, no thunderous rebirth, just soft mornings and the scent of wildflowers returning to the fields that had once burned. The land had healed. The cabin by the woods was no longer a place of hiding. It had become a home. The scars of fire and loss still lived in its corners. But sunlight had found its way back in. The laughter of a child echoed where silence once ruled. Noah, now almost walking, toddled across the small living room, unsteady but fearless. He clutched a worn leather collar in his tiny hand, the same one Samuel had placed by Rex's grave months ago. He carried it everywhere. Clara watched him from the kitchen, a gentle smile tugging at her lips. "He never lets it go," she whispered. Samuel nodded from the porch, carving a small wooden figure. A shepherd, carved carefully, patiently. And maybe he doesn't have to. Every evening, they walked down to the river. The oak tree stood tall and strong now, its leaves fuller than ever. Beneath it lay the small grave marked by a simple wooden cross. The earth had settled, and in its place, wild daisies had bloomed, bright and defiant. Clara knelt beside it, brushing away fallen petals. Noah toddled up behind her, dropping the collar gently on the mound. He sat down, babbling softly, his words half-formed but full of warmth. Samuel joined them, kneeling quietly. "You'd have liked this boy," he murmured. "He's stubborn, just like you." The breeze shifted, cool and kind. The leaves rustled overhead, the sound almost like a sigh. Clara closed her eyes, and for a heartbeat, it felt as if Rex were there again. The faint thump of a tail, the soft patting of paws, unseen but deeply felt. That night, rain came, gentle, cleansing rain that tapped against the windows and filled the air with the smell of earth. Clara sat by the fire, reading softly to Noah as he drifted to sleep. Samuel watched from his chair, eyes distant but peaceful. The world outside was no longer dangerous. The men were gone, the fire long extinguished. Life had found its rhythm again, fragile but strong. When Noah's eyes closed, Clara lifted him and laid him in the crib. She stood there for a moment, tracing the smooth wood, remembering another time. The old house, the ashes, the night when the world nearly took everything from them. She looked down at Noah's face, soft and safe, and whispered, "You were never alone, my love." "You never will be." In the faint glow of the firelight, the shadow beside the crib seemed to move. The outline of a great dog curled nearby, resting as he always had. Clara smiled through her tears. "A good night, Rex." Weeks passed. One morning, as dawn broke over the valley, Samuel took Noah to the field for the first time, the same field where their old home had stood. Wild grass had grown tall again, hiding the black scars of fire. The world had rebuilt itself, as if promising that nothing good ever truly disappears. Samuel lifted Noah into his arms, pointing toward the far oak. "See that, buddy? That's where your friend sleeps. He kept you safe." Noah babbled something that sounded like a Rex. Samuel laughed softly. Rex. They stood there for a while, the golden light washing over them both. The air was warm, filled with the hum of life. Bees, birds, and the quiet whisper of wind through the tall grass. That evening, as the sun set, Clara found Samuel sitting by the window with the old photograph in his hands. The one half-burned, edges curling but image clear. Rex lying beside the crib, eyes bright with devotion. She sat beside him, resting her head on his shoulder. "You still miss him," she said softly. He nodded. "Every day. But it's different now. It doesn't hurt. It just reminds me what love can be." Claire smiled. He'd want us to keep living. To keep loving. They sat in silence for a long while, the firelight flickering against the glass, reflecting the image of the shepherd on the mantel, the carved wooden figure Samuel had finished. In its shape, the story of their survival lived on. Later that night, Samuel stepped outside one last time. The stars stretched endlessly above him, the forest humming with life. The oak stood in the distance, its branches swaying gently. And there, in the faint shimmer of moonlight, he saw a shape. A shape, brief, almost transparent. A German shepherd, strong and proud, standing by the tree, watching. For a moment, their eyes met. A gaze not of this world, yet filled with the same warmth, the same vow. Then the wind passed through, and the vision dissolved into silver mist. Samuel exhaled, smiling. Rest easy, boy. You kept your promise. Morning returned, soft and full of light. Noah woke early, laughing, the sound bright and clear. He crawled across the floor to the front door, pressing his tiny hand against the wood, as if greeting someone just beyond. Clara joined him, lifting him into her arms. She looked out across the fields where sunlight spilled over the horizon, where life had begun again. Come on, she whispered, kissing his hair. Let's start the day. Behind them, the carved shepherd on the mantel caught the morning light, its wooden eyes glowing faintly gold. And somewhere, carried in the quiet breeze that swept through the valley, came the echo of a bark. Strong, loving, eternal. The sound faded into the distance, but its meaning lingered, a promise kept. A bond unbroken. The lifeline had not ended. It had simply changed form, from body to spirit, from fear to faith, from loss to love, and in that transformation, peace was finally restored.